Hey everyone, I'm going to be recording a sort of a late night video here that I've been promising for quite some time now. So we're going to talk about one of the nightmare topics of English language, which is conditionals. So if you're one of my students, especially one of my advanced students, you've likely been through this exact document before. And I just want to make a video because I know it's still pretty complicated for a lot of people. I'm just going to explain it a few times so that you can watch it as many times as you want, go nice and slow, and you don't have to worry about how long it takes you to maybe comprehend some of this crazy grammar. So, the first thing I want to talk about is why this is so important. Um, it's really important because this is the way that native English speakers, or at least me, this is the way that we usually think about these tenses. So you're probably familiar with the zero conditional, the first conditional, and the third conditional, and the second conditional as well. But we don't think about those things. If you ask a native speaker, they will have no idea what those are or even what a conditional is at all. So this is my attempt to demonstrate to you how to think about all the tenses at the same time, real or hypothetical, in terms of conditionals, so that you can, in theory, do this a lot faster if you're actually in a native English speaking situation. So let's get started. The way we're going to do this is we're going to ask ourselves two main questions every time. We're always going to ask, is what we're trying to say hypothetical or real, and which tense are we looking at? Now, it doesn't matter which order you answer these questions. It's going to make no difference, and you'll see why in some of the examples. So, as you probably know, all conditionals have two clauses. We have an if clause and a result clause is what we're going to call them in this video. Sometimes they're different names, doesn't matter. And in the if clause, we really have three possibilities here. And we always have three possibilities because we have a real hypothetical and past hypothetical. So, but of course we can talk about the future too, and we'll get into that in a minute. So, if in the real, so if plus present simple is going to look like present simple, it's going to look like first conditional. You're going to see this in an example down here actually where it says, if I go to the store tomorrow. Nothing crazy, this is probably something you've done lots of times. If we want to say something in hypothetical, remember we're answering these questions, now we need to choose the tense that we want. So if the tense is going to be present or future, it's going to look like past simple. And that's like this example here. If I were a dog, yeah, if I were a dog, meaning right now, if I were a dog, hypothetical present, I would eat dog food. This is also going to be now, but this is a non-real situation, so we can't use present simple. If you use present simple, this will sound like you are indeed a dog, and it's going to be totally confusing. So the point is, if you want to use something in present or future in the if clause, and it's hypothetical, it's going to look like past simple. Where's the past simple? Right here. Were. Past simple. Were. Okay. Here's where it gets a bit more complicated. Yeah, it gets more complicated. It's a lot more complicated. So if you want to do past hypothetical, you'll use past perfect. Basically, when we want to make a hypothetical like these, what we're trying to do is subtract one tense from the if clause. How do we subtract one tense? We often use either past simple, or if we want to go even further into the past, we'll use past perfect, right? Just like we do it in a normal tense. So let's take a look at an example here. If I am there on time, maybe I will be super happy. So that's a real situation. This is going to be a real situation if it is completed. And for that reason, we're looking at real in the present. Okay, it's going to look like present simple pretty much all the time. Remember that you cannot use will in the if clause, okay? Ever. Don't ever do that. Next. Now this one's a bit more complicated. Why don't I give you a second to think about it? If I had been there on time, what's going on here? Well, what we have is had been. And had been is our indicator for past perfect, right? Had been is always past perfect. So we know that this is a past hypothetical situation because the speaker, or really me, the one who wrote this down, is using the past perfect tense. We also know that this is going to be an unreal situation because it is past perfect. These tenses, in a conditional form, using if, really give us a lot of information about how to interpret the sentence. So, if I had been there on time, I would have ordered ice cream. But I wasn't there on time, so I couldn't order ice cream. Okay? Just to review really quick, let's look at this one more time. If I were a dog, this is going to be hypothetical, right? If I were a dog, I'm not, so I know it's hypothetical. And that means we need to use past simple. Okay? So this is kind of the structure for the if clause. Now let's move on to the result clause. The result clause, we can use will if we want to say something is in the future. We can also just use present simple if we want to talk about something that happens like every day. If it rains, the streets get wet all the time. Okay, so it's a zero conditional. We don't need to add any tenses to that. And then real, I also think is pretty easy comparatively. So if I go to the store, right, we just talked about the if clause. Here's the result clause. I will buy some potatoes. Yeah, I will buy some potatoes. Real situation. This will happen on the condition that I go to the store. Next, if I finish work at 6 p.m., I will cook my potatoes. Okay, nice. So everything with real seems pretty simple. Basically, we have present simple, and then we're going to add will in the result clause. But what if we want to do hypotheticals, which is often the case when we're using conditionals? For hypothetical present, we're going to add the word would. For hypothetical past, we're going to use would have. Okay? Does that make sense? So basically, have is subtracting one tense in the result clause. Because we also want to subtract one tense in the same way that we would here, but we're not going to use past perfect. We're going to use would and would have. If you speak Russian, this is like saying бы and бы plus past tense. So have is giving us that past tense. All right, let's look at a few examples and try to put some of this together because I know this is a lot of information. You're probably thinking, I'm never going to be able to remember all this. It's not quite as complicated as it looks. So let's say we want to make a mixed conditional. So here's where this really gets important because maybe you're thinking, well, do I really need mixed conditionals? Well, need is always a strong word, but it's very likely that you will want to use mixed conditionals, and it's extremely, extremely likely that you will hear them, I would say. 100% chance if you're in an English-speaking environment. So let's take a look here. If I still worked there, I would have been rich. Let's add by now, just to make it a bit more clear. And let's actually remove several years ago. This is a bit more clear this way. So if I still worked there, this sounds real. No, it doesn't, right? We have worked, past. So this is a hypothetical, or sorry, this is the if clause. So we go up here, look at if. We have past simple, yeah, which is here. So that means this is a hypothetical present situation, okay? Makes sense? That's what we have here. So how about next sentence we make it past hypothetical? So you can't do this in a normal conditional, right? This would be a combination of the second and third conditional, which just isn't acknowledged by the for conditional structure, which is ridiculous. It should definitely be included because this is a completely normal sentence. So if I still worked there, I would have been rich by now. Have been, would have, yeah, is here. Hypothetical past, okay? Now what I want you to do is just for a second, think about this sentence. This isn't that crazy of a sentence, right? If I still worked there, I would have been rich by now. But for some reason, I quit and I got a different job, and now I live, in a box under the bridge by the river or something like that. So let's take, let's just ignore this one. Let's just keep going. Let's look at this one, because I don't want this to be too long. If you want access to this document, just let me know and we can talk about it. So what if we want to do past hypothetical combined with a present hypothetical? Also something you can't do. This would be a third conditional combined with a second conditional. If that way of thinking helps you at all, I would urge you that when you start to understand this, don't use the first, second, third conditional structure at all. It's not very helpful. So if I hadn't left the company, right, here we have past perfect. So we have a past hypothetical situation in the if clause. I would be rich. Would, what's that? Right here, result clause, hypothetical present. Okay? Also, take a second to think about this sentence. Very normal. If I hadn't left the company, I would be rich. But I did leave the company, so I'm not rich now. Okay? Yeah. Some more examples here. I'll just say that if you want to take a look at this stuff, go ahead and just pause your video and take a look. It should be pretty easy just to come back up here and use this structure. It's really not that big to make any kind of mixed conditional that you want, as long as it makes sense. So here we'll just have some exercises. Maybe I'll link this. Yeah, we'll see. And here there's a bit more detail for when you're actually working within a particular period in the past, and we can make conditionals within this set period, but that's a bit complicated for now. What I'd like you to do is just try to get this together. Do your best to remember it. Remember, you're looking at these two questions. Really, I think it's probably best to ask this first, but I had one student who preferred to go this way, and he used this structure, and he can do this now without any problems. So, do whatever works best for you. All we care about is that you're able to do this without issues. So, really see that the sun's gone down quite a bit. So I'm going to head back inside before I get eaten alive by mosquitoes. If you have any questions, go ahead and write them in the comment section, or if you're one of my students, just go ahead and shoot me a message on Skype or whatever messenger app we're using, and Verbling or italki, and we can talk about it there. So yeah, if you have any questions, let me know. I hope this is helpful. I'm seeing mosquitoes, so I am going back inside. Good luck.